Hey YouTube, here again to talk about things going on in the world around us. This time, Colin Kaepernick. I'm so enthused because I'm honestly really tired of hearing about it and really hesitant to even give him this much more of a platform. But I do think it's very important this needs to be said. Um, so, how I'm going about it. First, I'll talk about how I feel about it, what was good and what was bad, or what's been good and bad about this whole thing. And then I'll talk about how we can either continue to devolve the conversation or push this conversation to the next level. First and foremost, I think this whole situation, the whole reaction, the fact that the media has been talking about it for days is annoying to me, not because of it having the media's attention. It's just on both sides of the spectrum, the perception of the issue is kind of over the top. So how I feel about it. Me personally, mostly indifferent, and kind of surprised. Not because of the reaction, but because of Colin Kaepernick of all people doing this. I'm from the Bay Area, so know all about Kaepernick's history with the 49ers. He has not had a great track record. Bit of history on Kaepernick. When he started with the Niners, he was great, fantastic. One of the best quarterbacks, and became one of the highest paid quarterbacks in NFL history. But these past few years, he's been terrible, and he has shit-talked his team a lot. He shit-talked his coach. He shit-talked the organization. But it keeps going. Last season, he was fined tens of thousands of dollars for calling a player a racial slur. Side note, that might be because he might have gotten the fine because he's biracial. And a bit more insight than what may have been seen by the public eye. I only know this because it happened locally, but he got kicked out of a house he was renting because the police shut down too many parties there. It was in a neighborhood with a lot of young professionals and close to a school and everything, and it just wasn't the right place for it. And these past few seasons, as I've mentioned, Kaepernick's been sucking and really getting way too much of a paycheck for the performance he's been giving the 49ers. So what I think is so odd about this is this season, more than ever, especially with his terrible start he's had, he is on the chopping block of the team. What I don't really understand about the issue is why does he wait till he's terrible to make a stand for something? Why does he wait till he's almost cut to really make some noise and get back into the public eye? What's frustrating to me about that is you had no intention of doing this when you were playing well, and you had all these sponsors, and you were in commercials all over the place. Yet when you're about to be cut off the team, you make this huge tiff and make a stand for something that you may or may not believe in. There are some speculators out there that believe he's doing this stand to put the organization of the 49ers in a tough position to make the organization look bad if they cut him. And I don't know, it's just suspicious that he waits till he sucks to do something. And it may be a change of heart, it may be a dose of inspiration, But it's just very suspicious. Additionally, I don't know if you guys knew this, but I put a hiatus on talking about things on Facebook because I've lost hundreds and hundreds of friends this year. Maybe as much as 300 because I've been talking so much about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I've really been avoiding statuses and talking to people. But I made it a point to say something about Colin Kaepernick on someone else's post about the matter. And I basically said, it's overblown, but I do feel, I understand both sides. I understand that, it's his right not to stand. It's his right not to stand. And in the same vein, him not standing is not a big deal. He shouldn't ever be equated to Muhammad Ali or Jackie Robinson for doing what he's done. But in the same vein, it should be recognized, and it's not a big deal. And somewhere in that sentence, I said it is kind of strange because last season he had this big fine that cost him tens of thousands of dollars for having a racial slur, parentheses, because he's a halvsie, and I'll get more to that in a second. But to just close up shop on why I feel this way, on both sides of the spectrum, there's been just two completely opposite issues. First, I'll address the conservative point of view, generally the conservative point of view, which is it's an atrocity. You should leave the country, and it's a disgrace. And I can understand that point of view because I do think the national anthem is a time when you honor those who have fallen in battle, especially in the War of 1812, which is what the national anthem is about. But at the same time, we need to be really careful as a nation, because the second we start berating people or beating people up for their lack of patriotism is the second we start looking like the Nazis in the 1930s and 40s, because that's what they would do. If you don't support Hitler, you deserve a beating, and the jackboots would come and beat people and really threaten people if they show a lack of patriotism. And the next line above that is like what Mao and Stalin did, is just kill people for not supporting him. We are the United States of America, and our First Amendment right grants us the opportunity to stand up for what we believe in, or sit down for what we believe in, as Colin Kaepernick has done. And we need to respect that. I know it sucks for those of us who are patriotic, and for those of us who have served in combat, to feel disrespected like that. But we need to recognize that if someone wants to stand up for something, they have the right to do so. Now, to address the other side of the perspective, or the other side of the spectrum, the people who are more liberal in mindset see Colin Kaepernick as the next, as I've mentioned earlier, next Muhammad Ali, or the next Jackie Robinson. I think that's a little overstated. Muhammad Ali went to prison for almost 10 years and gave up almost his entire boxing career to stand up against people dying, or didn't go to war in Vietnam because he didn't want to shoot people who didn't know. And Jackie Robinson really put his entire baseball career at risk for taking the risks he took. Colin Kaepernick is risking nothing. He's about to be cut by the 49ers, and really the only thing it's doing, other than raising awareness of what he's trying to raise awareness of, is giving him publicity. There is some feeling on my part of, as I mentioned earlier, dude, why didn't you do it earlier when you were actually good, when you could actually put something at risk? like a contract, or I'm just saying it puts more weight to his message. And last thing about Colin Kaepernick is he has hundreds of millions of dollars. How much money, how much time, and how much of his platform has he given to communities in need? So far, it seems like none. And it's like, Ali went to prison for what he believed in. Robinson was beaten in the streets for standing up for what he believed in. Kaepernick should not be put on the same pedestal that they deserve to be on. So moving forward, how can we take this and lift this into something better? Because of these two opposite perspectives, things are really devolving quickly. You can either be conservative, or you can be a Democrat. You can either be a Republican, or you can be a liberal in this issue. There is a big gray area in between that needs to be addressed. And I think I'm one of the few people who are publicly talking about it. Let me just first use an example of how this whole thing can devolve. When I post on Facebook, on my friend's wall, I had one of their friends respond. Well, actually, I had a lot of their friends that I don't even know, and they were liking it and saying, dude, I totally agree. Yes, yeah, exactly what you're saying. But then I had one person say, I just feel sick to my stomach with what you just said. And I was taken back. I didn't know what they were talking about. I just wanted to address it. Okay, let's have a dialogue. What are you talking about? Did I offend you? And they're like, yes, you absolutely offended me. You said the word halvsie. I'm like, okay, I did. Sorry if I offended you, but that's a commonly used phrase, and then they're like, well, you need to stop using it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to change my words. I know it's going to offend some people, but even if it's a word that might be slightly offensive, it shouldn't be added to the long list of words that we shouldn't say just because of it offending people. And then they posted this link, which I've described, which I've just put in the description below, with a long list of words that are racially offensive, and just happens to be on Wikipedia. So I'm like, okay, I see where this is going. Let me just put a period on this. And I basically just said, oh wow, Wikipedia, that really brings expertise to discussions, and ... and that was the end of it. And sometimes I do come off as an asshole in those type of situations, but really it's important we do not turn a potential huge discussion that can be very beneficial for people who really need the awareness brought to them into, these are words that hurt people, and because you use them, your opinion is null and you should not be a part of this conversation. And I'm getting exhausted, completely drained by people, most often on the left, who come at me with that position. It doesn't help that I'm white, and I'm trying to use my privilege to improve the situation for everyone the best I can. And I know this sounds like I'm tone policing, but everyone needs to do their part, and regardless of being offended or not, patience and collaboration is the only way we're really going to continue to improve society. And I'm open dialogue. I'll talk about whatever you guys want to, so long as you guys don't call me racist and don't say things like, you can't say this because this hurts my feelings, rather than, let's just have a discussion and let's really talk about my point of view. And I'm sorry if this comes off as tone policing, but I'm really trying to convey to you guys, the left, and Dave Rubin is one of the people who's coining this term, the regressive left is really picking up steam and starting to shut out a lot of people with opposing points of view, rather than having discussions on how we can improve things. It's always like, no, you just shut up and you listen to what I have to say. Like, I'm listening, but when you say that to someone, it's not a conversation, it's being berated. So I'm glad I have YouTube to at least express this. So how do we get to somewhere we want to be? How do we improve the status of this whole conversation about Colin Kaepernick into what Colin Kaepernick wanted to do, which is to have a conversation about police brutality and violence on blacks? We have to stop keeping the spotlight on Kaepernick as the focal point, because Colin Kaepernick is really just trying to convey a message. Kaepernick's not the message. What he's trying to say is part of the message, and the message that needs to be discussed is a whole bigger picture. Colin Kaepernick is only given so much time to talk about things, but what he's talking about is something very important that affects a lot of people across the United States, and that's police brutality. And he's mainly talking about police brutality against blacks. However, it's important to recognize that police brutality is a problem that affects all races. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying police are racist. I'm not saying police are generally violent people. I'm saying there is a lot of money going into police stations that is being earmarked for more guns, more expensive vehicles, superchargers for their cruisers, more riot gear, bigger SWAT teams, a lot more ammo, but there's very little of that money, much less than it should be, going into training police, psychiatric care for police officers, things police officers need to help improve their mental health, and things communities need to help improve the relationships between people who need police officers and people who need help in their communities to improve the situation in their communities. I know these are two entirely separate things, but I want to emphasize that who gets the reason why, one of the many reasons why blacks are so often victimized by police officers, because unfortunately a lot of black people are in poor neighborhoods that are often patrolled by police officers because crime tends to be within poor areas. Unfortunately, those are two problems that often coincide. And also, unfortunately, people who grow up in poverty are often there because of a terrible family situation, maybe single motherhood, and people who grew up without a dad often have often wind up with other limiting issues, not only income, but maybe they need to get more money for their mom, and that might lead to crime too. And it's important we recognize that there are two major issues that are hurting each other here. One is poorly funded police stations that don't take care of their officers and don't give them proper training, don't give them psychiatric care. And another is people who are in poor communities, not only black people, but also Hispanics, sometimes Asian, sometimes Middle Eastern, sometimes white, in poor communities who are stuck in this limbo of a situation. And those poor communities are getting worse and worse. The economy is not getting better, and the government has been doing a bad job of stemming this curve. And there's a whole other issue evolving from this, which where there's entire communities that have been very negatively affected by drugs, and there's a lot of laws on our books that really hurt people in poor communities way more than they hurt people in rich communities. And this is thanks to the economy, but the wage gap's getting bigger, the poverty line's getting higher. There's more and more people ending up in this terrible situation that is only getting worse because of this other problem with how police officers are getting trained. And the community relation between people who are hurt and police officers are just getting worse and worse and worse. And the people who are hurt are blaming police officers because of actions within a minority of people and police officers. And these poor communities are getting blamed for their crime because of actions of a minority of people in the poor communities. It's a terrible, terrible situation that is really going national. I know we see it a lot in areas like Ferguson, Missouri, and Michigan, Detroit, and see in Oakland, California. We're seeing in Compton, Los Angeles, in California. And it's something that has to change at the local level, and it's something that isn't being recognized at the national level. A lot of people like to blame Republicans for this, but for Obama's first 4 terms, he had a majority of the House and has done a lot of executive orders to send, arms overseas and drone bomb Pakistan, and has made a lot of statements about issues, but there hasn't been a lot of legislative action to really stem this curve. And this is only going to get worse and worse and worse if we continue this huge divide of you have to be patriotic in order to be an activist, or in order for me to listen to. And if you disagree with anything Colin Kaepernick has done, you're a racist. Or if you say anything that remotely offends me, I can't talk to you. It's exhausting. It's exhausting being in the middle. And I hate it. I hate it. I just hate that these two completely different polarized perspectives are turning their backs on each other and not seeing the big picture, which is we all live in the same country, we all live on the same planet. We're all one species. And last divide here, conservative perspective is often, well, criminals are often ones that get shot, and liberal perspective, which is, yeah, well, white people are oppressing these people, so it's white people's fault, or police officers, it's entirely police officers' fault. It's more than just that. I understand that there are a lot of people with a lot of wealth who could be doing more, and I understand that there are police officers who have been very violent, have gone the route of violence way too soon and have had way too itchy of trigger fingers. I'm definitely not condoning or defending anyone ever being shot in the back or Eric Gardner, but I do, regarding Eric Gardner, if you want to touch on that for a second, I do want to recognize that it's also a ridiculous law in the books that even got him into that situation in the first place. You're not allowed to sell cigarettes, therefore you'll be arrested. That's draconian, that's authoritarian, and that is so not what the United States is about. We're a country of freedom. We're a country that should have very little laws. We shouldn't have law books the size of rooms that are controlling our lives in this country. And these ridiculous laws are also part of why we're having all these issues. As far as solution goes, I wasn't planning on talking about solution, but one of the few, actually I do agree with a lot of what Bernie Sanders said. One of the many things I agreed with what Bernie Sanders was saying is it's up to this generation to make the next generation better. It's on us. Bernie Sanders, he's 80-something years old, and unfortunately, thanks to the corruptness of the Democratic Party, he didn't get as much of a platform as he deserved. But guess what, Democrats? Hillary Clinton's your nominee now because of the corruptness of the establishment. It's up to us to change that. Let's not forget that the same establishment is a big part of why there are these issues happening among all these communities across the nation. It's up to us to stop it. The establishment wants us to disagree. They want us to have our backs turned to each other and not listening to each other. They want us having only two perspectives and not seeing the gray in between. They want us to continue seeing each other as enemies. They want us to keep blaming police officers. They want us to keep blaming black people. They want us to keep blaming each other for the problems they're a big part of causing. So it's up to us to really stop focusing so much on what we disagree on and start focusing on how we can get to a solution that is bigger than just one problem at a time. We have to realize that these problems are very far-reaching and go beyond just the fault of police officers and just the fault of criminals. These problems are national and need to be solved all at once with efficiency, and we need to break it down and really focus it at one part at a time. Sure, we can talk about getting police brutality down, but we also need to recognize that police are often victims too, regarding their mental health or regarding situations they're often put in. Not because of the fault of necessarily the people within the community, but perhaps we can do something to help those in the communities in need to get out of those situations. It's a very long-winded discussion, and I think it's important we stop talking about Colin Kaepernick as the savior and start realizing he is just shining light on a platform that has already existed. And sure, maybe he's doing it at a time at the end of his career when he's disgruntled and maybe needs a platform for publicity. But at least he's doing it in a place which can help better this world. And for everyone out there who disagrees with Kaepernick, at least try and see my perspective on the issue. I'm right there with you. I'm a patriot, and I stand for the national anthem. I stopped and listened for the national anthem when I was watching the Olympics. I put my hand on my chest because I know too many vets. I know too many people who have been shot serving our country overseas. My grandpa served in World War II. I know a lot of vets who sacrificed for this country, and they deserve the recognition. But we need to understand that what they are fighting for is all the Constitution and Bill of Rights, including the First Amendment, which is freedom of speech, and that is intended to make this country a better place. We can only make this country a better place if we utilize our First Amendment and Second, Third, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, Eighth, Ninth, 10th Amendment at the local level. But my point is, we need to recognize this is an opportunity to really help this world. And sorry about preaching there, but I felt like it really needed to be said. That's it for me, and catch me next time. See you guys.